There and we're live. Hello everyone, thank you for joining again. So the last stream, I think the voice was a bit low, and today I think the voice is too high, but at least you can lower it better than listening to music. I felt like this meme where you have the sounds higher than the person actually speaking. Actually, I was watching a video yesterday about this, like maybe the 10 types of Blender tutorials that you can watch, and I was probably like 10 of them. The one that uh, I'm learning with you. So this is the first meme. The second one was the person with an accent. That's perfectly it. And the person that has the music sound higher than my sound. And I think the fourth one should be like the person that moves either too slow or too fast, or maybe the depressed one. I don't know if you've watched this video. Probably should link it somewhere. Anyway, so yesterday we were doing this generator. Hopefully today the music is not higher than my voice. So I did like 15 minutes of Blender Basics yesterday, of like the viewport, the navigation. You can watch that video. It's in the same playlist as the first video. It's the same one as making this generator. So I'm trying to make this generator. I'm trying to explain slowly like the process for this one. So yesterday we did this part, and we did part of this door, and we maybe did like 30 minutes worth of discussing Blender in general, like the basics of navigation and some of the tools. Not everything, of course, that will take much more time. But so today I want to keep on working on this. This is still part of the same project that you can check on my first video. Say, you know what? We have nothing. I can just show you quickly. These are gonna be the generators that are gonna be around this guy. With the first stream playlist we did was for this moped. Then we did the second playlist, you can check my videos, was for this building. And now we're doing these generators. All right, so quickly let's go back to the generators. Don't save. So I changed a bit of the proportions of stream. Hello, Cho. How are you, my friend? Okay, so let's just first, what I want to do first is I want to do today this latch and these hinges and maybe this latch. I googled a lot. They called let me see. They called it a toggle latch. Yeah, they called the toggle latch. It took some time to find them. There are different designs, different styles. Like, anyways, we're gonna try to figure out some of it by ourselves. All right, back to this. So since we did this section of this panel, I think we should mirror it the other side with the door, because I think the door goes with it. So to do that, first the front slash whatever, the front slash button, we can just isolate this selection. Then we can press tab to go to edit mode. Then we can press Ctrl R to add a loop cut in the middle. Press 3 to go to the faces mode. Then Alt Z to turn on the X-ray mode. It's the same one here. How are you doing, my friend? Shouldn't you be sleeping now? And then I'm gonna select one side of the generator, press X, and then I'm gonna delete all the faces. Then I'm gonna press Alt Z again. Then I'm gonna go to the vertices by pressing 1. I think I'm gonna put the center here, so I'm gonna select the edges. I'm gonna press Shift S, cursor to selected. Let me bring it back. If you press here on this viewport overlays, you can turn on and turn off the overlays, the 3D cursor, the grids, the floor, the axes, whatever you want. Anyway, I turned off the floor because I found this grid a bit distracting. Hopefully my voice is going fine. Today it's not too low. And sometimes I turn off the 3D cursor because it's a bit also in the way. Now, if I go to object mode, shift Control tab actually, or you can do it in here. And I right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Now the origin, this orange dot is on the 3D cursor. So now if I do something like add a modifier and add a mirror modifier, is gonna mirror around the this origin point. So whatever I do to this side, it's gonna automatically be applied to this side. So let me show you quickly. So now they are just mirrored. Right, press on the isolate button again, which is the /. I don't know which one, like it's the one that looks like this. Okay, I'm gonna call it / for now on, even though I might be mistaken. All right, the same thing can be done for this door. You can see it's just a plane with a solidify modifier, which gives it thickness. So now if I add a mirror, it's gonna mirror on itself, but in the mirror modifier, we can pick which object we wanna mirror on. So we're gonna mirror on the same body here. It didn't do it. Let's see. I guess it has to do with something. Either this is from. Why is it mirroring like this? Let's check. We're mirroring on the X, and it's not working. Why? Why? The question is why. So let's Control A, apply the scale here. Control A, apply the scale here. And what's happening? So for some reason I have a cube in here. I'm gonna delete it. So this is why. I'm gonna Alt H to unhide. Then we're gonna pick this. So I had an object below that one that was duplicated. Maybe I pressed Shift D by mistake during the process. I'm not sure. So now we have whatever is happening on this side mirrored to the second side, and it has two doors. And this is the back is also a maintenance door that you can open, because you see that there's a latch in here. So of course there are hinges on the other side. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna press Tab, and we're gonna pick this edge by pressing 2 and selecting this edge, then G to move, Z to lock it to the Z axis, and lock it up. And I think I've seen enough generators to assume that if we select this face by pressing 3 and we insert, I think this one has also fins, like the front ones. So this is for air circulation, because it gets so hot in these like combustion engines. Now I think we can do something like 4 centimeters for this. My numlock is not on, so let's do inset 0.04 for 4 centimeters. Yep, I'm gonna E to extrude it inwards a bit. Then what we can do is we can take these guys that we already did, go to 7, which is top view, Shift D to duplicate, Y to move it on the Y axis. When I check the axis, I usually check this. So Y is like this. And I think it needs to be mirrored, so right click, mirror. I think we need to mirror it on the Y as well. Yep, on the Y as well. Then 7 again for the top view, Alt Z to see the X-ray, G on the Y to move it. I think the whole thing needs to be moved a bit backwards, so on the Y as well. And that face in here, the one inside, is a bit too shallow, so Alt Z to see what we're doing, and on the Y, move it backwards. All right, so now all you have to do is position these properly like this, scale them on the X like that, and increase the array modifier just to have the proper count. And you have also not to forget that since the scale has been altered, this can mess up the modifiers and some other things. So we can press Ctrl A and just apply the scale, which is the same thing as going to object, apply the scale. Right. So we have this and that. And the other thing that we can do is that we can take these hinges, press 7, press Shift D, and we can rotate them by 180 degrees and press G and position them in a way where we can so what we can do is press G, and this G, since we are in the perspective view, it's moving it everywhere. If we press Shift and Z, then we lock it to the X and Y axis, so we're just moving on this plane without the vertical plane. So just to position it quickly, press 7, just to be on the top view, and it's somewhere in here. So this doors, if we place the pivot somewhere on this edge, let's go to tab, press 2, shift S, the cursor would be here, then right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Now if you rotate on the Z, you can see that this door is like, we're like imitating the opening of this panel, but it needs a bit more work of parenting and stuff like this. You know what? Let's go to the top view, press tab, Alt-Z. I wanna make this a bit deeper. So on the Y, and then I wanna pick these guys and move them a bit outwards. Just wanna make this panel a bit bigger. I know that it looks narrow in here, but it's a design decision at this point. All right, let's save and let's move on to the next one. I wanna create the look of a panel in here. So I wanna like give the imitation that this is like a panel, this is a panel, and this is a different panel. So the way to do that is also easy. Again, let's isolate the selection here, and let's go to the top view. Let's go to edit mode, and let's go to the edges, press Ctrl R, move this somewhere here. Yep, let's do Ctrl B to bevel. Make it something small. And what we can do is we can just right click and extrude along the normals. We need to do this on the faces, of course. Right click, extrude along the normals, and it should be like -1 centimeter, 0.01. And we can pick here offset even, so it doesn't look weird when it's offsetted. Again, deselect everything, press Q wireframe. So again, the wireframe, if you haven't watched yesterday's stream, it is here in the viewport overlay. It's this button, you can click it, but if you right click on it and you add it to quick favorites, now you can access it by pressing just Q, and this is like a menu where you can customize the tools that you want to use quickly. Right, next, let's pick, I want to do these hinges before starting with this latch, because I don't really know how this looks, so I'm just avoiding it for a bit until I finish like more easier things. So the hinge in here is simple, it's just like this one actually, but it has a bit of a different design. It has bolts. I'm gonna show you how you can do bolts easy in Blender. So to start, first we need to set the cursor to create the cylinders right in here. So what I want to do is press on the edge, Shift S, bring the cursor here, and now if I press Shift A and mash, select cylinder, you can see that the cylinder has been created on this edge that we placed the cursor on. Now I can just change the radius of this whatever cylinder to match just like the picture. Also, I want to reduce the vertices to probably something like 12. 32 for the scale is too much, maybe 14 is fine. The radius is the radius is 1 centimeter, which is basically 2 centimeters. That's fine. The depth is around 7 centimeters. We can make this a bit higher. Let's make it around 9. All right, let's go to the top view and let's move it a bit outwards on the X, something like this. And this should be also easy to do. So what we want to do is we want to isolate this so we don't see anything else. We're going to go to the top view, go to the tab, and we want to pick these two faces. So what we want to do is just press Alt-Z actually, go to the top view, and you have to pick these two faces only. And we want to make sure that these are the faces that are facing the generator. So just let's make sure that we're doing this. They are not. So instead of these two, we want to pick this one, which is easier actually to use. So we want to just extrude it outwards, scale it on the X by 0, just to make sure that it is flat. When you scale something on one axis by 0, it flattens it out. Let me show you. If I select these faces, and I scale them by x on 0, you can see that they become flat. Whatever the axis you are scaling on, it will flatten it out if you do it by the 0. Then let's add a loop cut here. Let's pick the face here, and let's just extrude this outwards like this. And probably there's a small bevel in here, so let's do that. Control B, something like this. And it seems that it also goes something like this, and let's bevel it in here. I'm not following any dimensions or anything. This is too small. Like these small variations actually makes it more interesting, so there is no need to focus on any of this stuff. You can also inset this face and add a pin to it to make it more realistic, but this is also an overkill at this scale. But what we can do is just to make it look a bit more interesting, because there's a pin somewhere in here. I've seen this enough to just assume, like the pin that's inside the hinge, sometimes it goes outside of it and you can see the head of it. So what we can do is just insert by a very small number, something like 0.02. Then we can extrude up, then we can extrude up again, then we can pick these edges and right click and extrude along the normals. Then we can pick these edges by pressing Alt Shift and again, and beveling this a bit, something like this. And you know what, instead of doing this, let me delete those faces here. You know what, let's keep it. We'll see what we can do. I think what we can do right now is just fix the proportions here, and then we can Alt D to it's duplication, but it's an instant duplication, so everything you change on one object is gonna affect the other. Right click to just put it on top of it, rotate it by 180 degrees and move it downwards. Yeah. Now, if you just change one side, you can see that it's changing on the other side. And what we can do also is that we can push this up a bit. Or instead of pushing this up, I think it's better to bevel it, so it will create like a joint without the need of pushing the edges and trying to figure out the topology here. Alright, so that's the first hinge. Now, if you pick this face, Shift S, cursor to selected, if you go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, so instead of Interface, Add-ons, and you look for bolts, it's writing in Arabic, there's something called the bolts factory. Just turn it on. Now if you just press Shift A, it is somewhere here. If you search for bolt, it's too big. The height is like 2 meters. We need something like 1 centimeter by maybe 1 centimeter. It's just too big. And you know what? Let's just scale it, because you have to change a lot of numbers. So mesh bolt. There is no way to change the whole scale just together. So instead of this, I'm gonna scale it by 0.01. All right, I think, okay, Shift A, bolt. So I think we need to bring these back to, it was maybe 2 by 5, something like this. Now if we scale by 0.01, yeah, that makes more sense. So if we rotate, we need to rotate on the y-axis. So this is the y-axis. Let me write. This is the y-axis, and we need to rotate this like this. So we select the axis that we want to rotate on. So rotate on the y by 90 degrees and scale it even further. Then move it back just like this, rotate it a bit in this view. Then you can just Shift D, one in here, and Shift D, one in here, and you can just Shift D everything on the Y like this, and just play a bit with the rotation. That's it. Now you can select everything, press Ctrl J to join everything together. And we need to place our origin somewhere. Let's do it. Let's do it somewhere here. Let's do it on this face. Or let's select these two faces. Now if you do Shift S, cursor to selected, it's gonna be in the middle of these two faces, which is technically the middle of the whole of this object. And right click, set origin to 3D cursor, then Ctrl A, let's apply the scale, let's apply the rotation to make sure that everything is applied properly. Then let's get out of isolation mode, move this down. I think it's a bit too big, or is it fine? It's kind of too big. So we can scale it by maybe 20 centimeters. So 0.8, you make it smaller by 20 centimeters. 20%, sorry, not 20 centimeters. It's still a bit too big. Let's see if a scale would do the job, or we need to do something else. Yeah, that's fine. G, Y. Yeah, that's fine. Let's move it backwards on the X. And now we can just mirror it on the Z axis, maybe following this panel. So this is also like somewhere in the center, or maybe this, the door, which seems more, yeah, it makes more sense. So just search for a mirror modifier, not on the X, on the Z, and pick the door as your reference point. Shift S and move the cursor to the world origin just to move it out of the way. So now that we have done these two, I think we can do a mirror also on the, I think we need to do another mirror. This one should use this as the origin, and it should be on the X, so it mirrored to the other side. So now we can rotate this door from here and here. And when we're done, I think we can apply all of these modifiers, but for now, this is fine. All right, next, let's make this exhaust box. It's kind of a silencer for the exhaust, I guess. It's just super easy. What we need to do is just pick this edge, Shift S, cursor to selected, then press Shift A, mesh, cube, scale by a lot. Ctrl A, apply the scale just to make sure that we have scale applied. Then Alt Z, 1 for the vertices. G on the Z axis, move it up. Same thing in here. Let's move this upwards like this. Then G on the Y, something like this. And we can pick these two sides and scale them on the X like this. Make it a bit higher. Next, we can move the whole thing up a bit. There's like a small detail in here that will look good. So what we can do is go to edit mode, in the faces mode, inset by something small, and then extrude down and move the whole thing downwards. This is one thing. Now we want to make the exhaust, which looks something like this, and then it rotates around. So we can do it in two parts, because it is two parts actually. But first, let me pick all of the edges here, I guess. It should be all of the edges for this guy. So press A to select everything, Ctrl B, or what we can do instead, we can add a chamfer modifier or a bevel modifier. It's a bevel modifier. So at least this is tweakable. And yeah. Like we can come back to it and adjust it if you want to. And we can delete this face so it doesn't have to bevel on this edge. Okay, that's done. Now, okay, so the way to create, so there is like a, I'm not sure if it's visible in your screens. There's like a cone that is welded to this metal box. You know what? This chamfer is too big. Let's make it smaller. So yeah, there's like a something that is welded to this box, and then there is another tube. There are different ways to do that. I think I'm gonna do it the easiest way. So I'm gonna show you this trick. But just making sure first that all my proportions are working properly from different directions. If it's looking fine, let's make it a bit wider, scale on the X, something like this. Yeah. All right, so what we can do is we can create a cube. You can press tab in vertices, select everything, press M, and merge everything at the center. So what we end up with is just a vertex, okay? Then there are different ways to do what I'm showing you, but this is one of the ways. So if you press extrude on the Y, now you have an edge. Then you can extrude on the Z. Now you have something that looks like an L. Then you can pick this, bevel it, or Control B, Control Shift B actually, because we're beveling a vertex, not an edge. And if I scroll on the mouse wheel, I'm adding more vertices. All right. Then what I can do is right click, convert this into a curve. I could have done this a curve, but this is one of the ways. Now in the curve, there is something called geometry, and there is a bevel where you can just make this, turn this into something like that. So let's just do something visual in here. We can increase the resolution a bit. And it seems that this needs to be probably reduce the depth a bit, yeah. Yeah, scale it up. Okay, so scaling, because we're scaling from the origin of the cursor where the original cube was created. So press tab, pick this vertex, shift S, cursor to selected, then right click, origin to 3D cursor. So now when I'm scaling from this point, actually. Now I wanna move it somewhere here. So what I want to do is just add more information here, just so I can see what I'm doing. So just move this visually somewhere in here. Now, so there is something in here, as I was telling you. So if I can right click, convert this into a mesh again. Now I can go back to edit mode, Control R, add a edge loop here, pick the faces, Alt and click on the edge, right click, extrude along the normals. I can create this. Then I can pick these edges, pressing Alt. Then I can scale. I think I can scale on all of the axes here, it doesn't really matter. Something like this. I have to right click shade auto smooth just for this to be smooth, doesn't have to look very rough. Then I think what we can do is we can add an edge loop here, slide it a bit down. Then we can pick these faces in here, extrude them to the inside, like that. Yep, that's fine. Now we can, of course, what we can do is we can like boolean around here and make this fit inside of it, or we can add a bit more details, but that doesn't really matter actually. Of course, we can do many things, but like probably what I want to do just to make it blend in better, I want to delete these faces. I want to pick these edges. I want to extrude, right click, Alt S to scale them out. And maybe I can move this backwards a bit on the Y just to blend it in a bit more like this. Yeah, that looks more interesting. Now we can do the same thing, extrude, right click. Now we have edges on top of each other's. Alt S on the, wait, Alt S, it's not working. So let's do this again. Let's extrude, right click. I should be able just to scale without Alt S. Yeah, we can just scale them. Blender and its many options. So just scale a bit, extrude up on the Z, something like this. Then extrude and scale inwards like this. Pick these edges and bevel them. We don't need a lot of resolution here. Then we can pick these edges here, these ones, and extrude on the Z downwards like this. So we have this detail in here. Let's press Shift S and move the cursor to the world origin just to take it out of the way. So now this is just a cone that is rotated. So I was thinking about just grabbing this. So like I want to just duplicate this whole thing, rotate it by 90 degrees like this, and then rotate it on the Z by something, it doesn't really matter. And then we can just position it somewhere here, scale it down, something like this. We'll fix this in a bit. Now what we can do is just go to faces, Alt Z to see the X-ray of this, then delete all of these. It shouldn't be rotated on something other than the X. So if you press N in the object mode, you can check that the rotation here is fine. The rotation here is fine. This was 90 degrees. So why? What's happening here? Zero this out. There seems to be like a bend downwards. It doesn't really matter, I can just do this actually. I'm not sure why actually, but that's fine. That's not a big deal. Sometimes things happen while you're working, and that's okay. Then let's pick these faces. Let's scale them. Should we just slide them? So this is why we need the rotation to be proper, because what's happening right now is like I can no longer scale this on an axis because it's scaling like uniformly. So this is not good. Let's delete the whole thing. Let's repeat it. So let's go back to edit mode. Let's pick something in here. Let's pick these edges, which are already selected. Let's press Shift S, cursor to selected. Let's press Shift A, anything. And a UV sphere could work. It's too big, that's fine. Go to edit mode, press 1, A to select everything, press M, and merge everything at the center. Then we can extrude we have just a vertex here, so we can extrude like this, extrude it. So now we can move it up GZ, and then we can extrude it on the Y, something like this. Now we can Control Shift B to bevel it again, add some more information like this. Again, we can just go to object mode, convert this into a curve, and do something like this. Then we can pick this, move it somewhere inside, and this is somewhere downwards. Increase the resolution a bit. Shade auto smooth, that's fine. Convert into a mesh. Pick this edge. That's okay. You can pick this edge if you want. Bevel it by something small like this. Then pick these faces and now extrude along the normals, something like this. It doesn't really matter. Then let's pick these, and what we can do is extrude, right click, scale, and extrude on the Y, something like this. So the shade auto smooth has a bit of a controller here in the object data. If you go to normals, if you select this auto smooth, now you can tell it like what's the degrees that you want it to smooth on. I do this usually visually. So you can see if we go beyond 90 degrees, now it's smoothing these edges that are 90 degrees, which doesn't look nice. So something around like 75 is fine. For this one, I think below 90 degrees is working fine. Pick these edges, let's bevel them a bit. And yeah, that's fine. Shift S, cursor to board origin, and just save, press N to hide this. Alright, now I can rotate this on the Z axis to be something a bit different, and then I can move it a bit downwards like this. So now that we have this done, we're almost ready. Okay, one more thing. Because these generators are usually supported by this shape. It's some sort of a U-beam, something of a U-beam. There are 1, 2, I know it's too dark for you to see it, 3, and they usually go and they extend from one, like it's like this. 3 of them. They're also pretty easy to do. Before doing this latch, I'm gonna do the last thing, I think. Then we're gonna do these beams, and I think it's done. These pipes, I think we're gonna do the opening for them. These are the diesel pipes. We're gonna do just the openings because in the scene, our diesel tanks are not on top of the generator, which is kind of typical. It's extremely risky. But yeah, so super easy things. Let's bring back the floor. Okay, I think it doesn't show from here. Is it the grid? Yeah, it's the grid. Just to see where's the floor from the side view. So we all we need to do is just one, and it's pretty easy to do actually. All we have to do is just Shift A, mesh a cube, scale it down visually to something like 20 centimeters. It's fine, not too 20, 0.2. Move it downwards, go to edit mode, pick 1, 2, let's isolate everything else, 3, and X to delete all of these faces. Then pick these 2 edges, scale them on the Y, move them up on the Z, and then let's extrude them. Right click. What did we extrude? Alright, pick these two edges, extrude them, right click, scale on the Y. This is the shape that we're looking for. That's everything we need to do. Now all you have to do is to go to the solidify modifier. It's not gonna work properly because the scale is all messed up. As you can see, the scale is 0.1. You have to press Ctrl A and apply the scale and make sure that it has even thicknesses here. Something like 1 centimeter is more than enough. Actually, it's too big as well. It could be like 8 millimeters. That's more than enough. Press tab. I think it's still too big, but that's fine for now. Tab. Just let's make it extend on the whole width of the generator, something like this. It's not too big, it's fine. I'm gonna hide the grid and the floor again because they're distracting. And then let's move it down. Let's press N, move it backwards. Then we can add an array modifier. I think we need 3, but this should go on the y-axis. On the minus y, actually. Just visually something like this. And we can move the whole thing up by something. So now let's bring back the grid, the floor, G on the z-axis by, I think, 0.15. Yep, perfect. All right, now let's do the last thing. I think this is too much. All right, before moving on, let's just scale the whole thing down a bit. Move it down. It's a bit too much. They're looking weird. You barely see them in real life, so. And you just need to adjust the offset of the array to be something like this. Yeah, this looks much more convincing. And we have to do these latches on this side and on this side. We can just do one of them and then just copy it and rotate it. And that's gonna be probably it for the modeling of this. I think we need to add something in here as well. All right, before, let's just make sure that we have some thicknesses here. Let's just, all right. I don't think we can fill it because it's a mirror modifier. So what we can do is extrude on the Y, on the X, just by something like 20 centimeters or minus 20 centimeters. Sorry, extrude on the Y by minus 0.2, on the X by minus 0.2, yeah. Then pick these edges and Ctrl B to bevel a bit. It's messing the topology, I think. Forget it. It's messing the topology, so I'm not gonna ruin it now. We can check it later. This became too small on this as well, so let's scale this on the X just to extend it outwards and move it a bit on the X like this. All right, the latches. So the latch is made out of a couple of parts. First, you have the part that is right in here. It's like I don't know, it's like something, a tongue or something. Hey man. Yeah, of course. Got some sleep. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good night. So we have like a fixed part in here. Then we need the latch will be made out of like also like maybe 3 or 4 parts. So let's start with the first one, which is the all right. So let's start with the easy one, with the first one. Sorry, that one that's fixed on the generator's body. So for this to happen, first let's Shift S, cursor to selected here. All right, just to have a place of to start this from. Now the question is, what do you want to do? What do you want this to be? So I think I'm gonna do it as a cube. So Shift A, it's a cube. Scale it by, I don't know, a lot. Yeah, probably something like this. Move it backwards on the Y. Now, of course, if this is like a pre-prepared tutorial, I would have like, you know, follow these instructions, but I don't have this right now. So I'm just trying to figure things out as we're doing them. So I'm gonna add some more definition, some more geometry. Gonna move this a bit inside. We're gonna make this whole thing a bit bigger. So if you're suffering with the zooming around an object, so let's say I'm working on this object and I want to work on this, and for some reason the rotation is not working, you press on the period and you now focus on the object that you want to work on. So select this object, press the period, and now you're rotating around it. Okay, so let me pick these edges, move them backwards. Let's add some more edge loops here and here, and probably here. But if you press, so as you can see now, the loop, it's kind of conforming to the closest edge. But if you press E, it's either this, or if you press F after you press E, it's gonna conform to the other side. So I want it to be like this. Now if I pick this point here, Control Shift B, now I'm beveling this vertex, so I have like a small rectangle here or a square in the middle, and I can use that. So probably we need it to be a bit bigger. Control Shift B, something like, you know what, I think I don't need this to as a limitation, so Control X to delete this. Move this on the X, something like this. Now, and we don't need these, they're also, so Control Shift B, now we can make a bigger rectangle without the constraints. Now we can extrude it once. Let's isolate it a bit, go to the top view, let's extrude it again, rotate it, move it outwards, extrude it, rotate it, move it outwards, scale a bit, and then pick this and scale a bit. So it's kind of a hook. Let's bring it back here. It's kind of the hook where the latch, like this is the hook, and then you have the latch that's locking into it. It needs a bit more geometry for it to look more convincing. So let's think about that a bit. But first, let's try to define these shapes a bit more. So G, X to the inside, G, X. So right now this is just cosmetics if you want. Is it Alt S? Yeah. So I'm just trying to do my best to just add a bit more information. So tab view, Control R, adding another loop cut in here, Alt S to scale it along its normals. I'm not trying to be very accurate or clean here because these are like handmade metallic shapes, so like adding this kind of messed up geometry kind of add to the look if it's gonna show. Anyways, this is too smooth. Then once it messes up all of this that's happening in here, I can press Alt Z so I can select the whole vertices in here. Then you can scale on the Y by 0 and it flattens everything again. And just following some like visual cues in here. I'm not trying to be accurate or anything. So just moving vertices around. Yep, that's good enough. Right click, shade auto smooth. So we can first, let me shift S, cursor toward origin, just because it's a bit distracting. So this is very low poly, even with this mode. But it's a decision that, like, are you going to see this close or not? If you want to add some subdivision modifiers and then you want to like add some more edge definitions for these subdivision modifiers or not. For me, this is fine. Actually, this is more than enough. I'm gonna isolate it, press 7. I just wanna add a bit more curvature here. And Alt Z, rotate this, move it like this. Just a bit of this. Alright, so this is the hook part of this latch. Now the latch is made out of the fixed part, so you have one part in here, which is the same thing here. Then you have this kind of handle, or which is the latch that you move with your hand, and in it there is like some sort of a ring that latches into this this hook. It's not hard to do. It's just a thing that we need to figure out step by step. So I think I'm gonna start with this one. And how can we do this? Thinking about it right now. It looks like an O that's open, so it looks like this. And it goes inside of here. So I think the easiest way to do it is just like we did the pipes here. We can just duplicate the whole thing here. Press A, and merge everything at the center. So now we have a single vert. We can extrude that on the Y. Then we can extrude that on the, doesn't really matter, just visually like this. And then on the Y, then extrude it on the Z. Then extrude it again on the Y. Yeah, that's on the Y. So extrude. Hello, my friend. How are you doing? Still in jail. Then extrude this like this. And now what we should do is Ctrl Shift B for these. Then we need to merge these at center. Ctrl Shift B for this one. And Ctrl Shift B for this one. Yep. Now convert this to a curve, then go to the bevel in the geometry tab and just do something like this. Then I want to position it and scale it just to make sure it's in the right position. And what I want to do also is I want to pick these guys, Shift S, cursor to selected, then right click, set origin to 3D cursor. So now this is pivoting from the center of this point, which makes it easier to control. Right click, shade auto smooth. It's looking fine. We need to go back to the bevel and we need to fill the caps, so we close these. And is it Control A or Alt A? have no clue. I think it's Control A. Let me see. There's a way to scale the vertices. Scale, vertex, curves, and oh, okay. So this is for the skin modifier, not for. Anyway, forget it. We can add more resolution here. And let me go back to my OBS. Okay. Now, the next piece of this is Shift S, cursor to selected. Now Shift A, create another cube. It's gonna be too big, of course, because Blender makes everything too big. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's happening. It's super weird. I think they are applying the rules of Instagram, like they're copy and pasting them as they are into threads. And like they are two different platforms. I can understand why they want to limit the replies on Instagram, because somebody can spam this. But limiting the replies on threads, like what's the purpose? It's a text-based platform, so what are you doing? I'm punishing people for it. Like, what are you trying to do? So for those of you who are not aware, me and Yamraj and Dylan and like the guys that are commenting on these videos right now, we are all in one community on Threads, and Threads seems to be cracking down on accounts that are replying to each other for some reason. They don't want people to talk to each other on a platform that is made for these kind of conversations. So I don't know. Anyways, so what I'm trying to create here is this small platforms that goes up that we can use to pivot on. So just Control B, then pick this face, extrude it outwards, then pick these two edges, Control B, something like this is more than enough. There's energy unconnected. That is the reason why we are limited to pasta. Why they want? So what's the point of connecting these two platforms? I get it that they are connected by a link. That's super cool, but why are we connecting them by terms of use? I don't know. What do I know? So let's pick this. Let's Control B, bevel, then shade auto smooth, go to all right. You know what? Let's okay. Well, I'm trying to mirror this directly, but I think mirroring it is not the best way. It's not the best idea. Thank you for hanging out, Pochan. Thank you so much, man. See you soon. I know it's a bit late over there. So let's do an Alt D and move it on the Z. So instead of doing Shift D, which is normal duplicate, I did a linked duplicate, which is Alt D. And like as I said before, now if we edit one, you edit the other. But now I can just mirror this on the Z. So now they are as if they are mirrored, but they are not mirrored. Actually, they are two separate objects that are linked. Okay, so we're almost there. Bear with me. Shift A, mesh. Let's create a plane, I guess. Or probably a cube. Let's create a cube. A huge cube again. Scale it. I think I wanna first apply the scale here and apply the scale. So if you apply the scale, you have to break the link. So let's not apply the scale for now, we don't need it. Not sure why, I need to Google that. So let's delete this face, and probably this face. Let's pick these, move it outwards on the Y. Then we can pick these two guys and bevel them. And we can add some more loops in here. Then what we can do is do a simple deform, I think it's called, yeah. Should we do... What's happening? Should we do a twist on the X or should we do a bend? It should be a bend on the X. And let's do something. Yeah, it's a bend on the Z. So it's something like this. That's perfect. G on the X. Yeah, of course. Shoot me a DM whenever you want. Alright, that's cool. Now I want to apply this deform and I wanna, you know what? I'm gonna isolate this whole thing. Press N to hide this menu. Go to the top view, tab. I'm gonna enable proportional editing, which is O. Then I'm gonna pick these guys, rotate, make sure that the proportional editing is smaller, it's too big. So you see this circle, this radius in here. If you scroll up, it becomes smaller. So let's do this again. Messed everything up. So G, scroll up. Yeah, now it's more convenient. Okay, let's press Alt Z because we were selecting only the top vertices. So now I want to rotate this like that and like this. Rotate it like this, and probably rotate these guys but make this smaller. Alright, now we need to add a solidify, but we also need to apply the scale because it has been scaled heavily. Something like this. And the final piece to the puzzle is we need to pick, let's create a connection between these two faces by pressing K using the knife button, cutting between these two vertices, press enter, press 2. You have this edge, shift S, cursor to select it. So now we have the cursor in here, press shift A, mesh, cylinder, and let's make the whole thing smaller. I think we can do that in edit. So G, we need to turn off proportional editing. G, Z. So this is technically the pin that this thing rotate around, and it's also, let's assume that where this is attached to, but I'm not gonna go much into the details of what's happening inside here, or like there's like another plate here, of course. I don't think we need to worry about all of this stuff. I'm just gonna shade auto smooth for this, shade auto smooth for that. So shift S, cursor toward origin. As you can see, this is more than enough in terms of details. I think what we can do is push this whole thing on the Y a bit, and we can drag these guys on the Y as well, something like this, and G on the Y, something like this. So yeah, this is this. We need to just copy it here, and the easiest way to do it is just to join everything, Ctrl J, But before joining, let's just apply the solidify. So it's now part of the object. I've been streaming for 1 hour now. I think we're almost done here. Let's join everything. This is still a curve, so we have to convert it into a mesh. And let's join it to this, guys. So the shade auto smooth has to be updated from the data here. And I think I'm gonna push it upwards to like 60 degrees or maybe a bit less. Yeah, something like this. Save it. Shift D to duplicate it. Let's say somewhere here. Rotate it by 180. And yep, let's go to the top view. Alt Z view for the wireframe. That's fine in terms of depth. Oh, my hand is hurting me. Let's bevel this guy. So let's go to the modifiers. Let's apply, instead of applying the solidify, let's add a bevel modifier here. Let's put it on top of the mirror. Make it much smaller. Add some more segments. It should be something like 0.005. And I think we're done for generator 1. Yep, I think we're done. What we need to do last is just add an opening for these pipes, just so I can remember that I need to do like this kind of piping when I add this to my final scene. So what we should do, we can first apply the mirror because I want to do it on just one side. So you can do this in object mode, not in edit mode. In edit mode, you cannot apply. So just apply. And then we can do this the easy way without booleans. So we can go to edit mode. We can, I don't want to triangulate anything. Go to edges, Control R, somewhere in here. That's fine. Then we need one opening here and probably another one here. Then the easiest way to do it is just to Control Shift B. Make sure they are just squares instead of circles, because it's gonna be too small anyway to notice that this is even a square or a circle. We can move this down a bit. We can move this here, doesn't really matter. And we can extrude them to the inside. And that's it actually. Now if you just add pipes in here, no one's gonna even realize that this is a square or a circle. It doesn't really matter. I just wanna do some beveling for this to look more realistic. I wanna do it on both sides because we don't have a mirror modifier anymore. And I wanna do it also here and here. Yeah. And again, let me shade auto smooth here also. So this is it. We've been streaming for 1 hour. I think in the next stream I'm gonna just unwrap it quickly, just for you to see how we unwrap this thing, and probably that's it. I'm just gonna hang out for a second for the stream to update with the OBS. I'm gonna save. And thank you for joining. Thank you guys. Thank you for everyone for chatting. Thank you everyone for who's gonna watch this later, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.